Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do a little bit of all things creepy, but today we are doing nothing but reading scary stories that you guys have sent in to me. So with that being said, if you have any stories you'd like for me to share, please send them to this email address, and I will also put everything in the description below, along with podcast episode links and other social medias. But with all that being said, let's read some stories. Hi Morgan, Eric, the pets, and little Irene. Yes, I want to cover all of my bases. I sent you the divorce house story, and my son sent you a couple of stories about No Face and the human spider, but this story is about the Harbinger, and a thank you to my son who helped me write them all. The hooded figure was skeletal, cloaked in something shaggy, and held a walking stick. It takes place in January 2022, shortly after I broke up with my ex, who still holds a special place in my heart. For the sake of privacy, I'll refer to him as Jerry. Jerry and I worked together for a year, and he was a very kind and sweet man. When he broke up with me, he said, "I'm not worth it. Please find a better man than me." Sometime earlier, I had lent him my laptop and left my external drive with him. When he offered to give me the laptop back, I let him keep it, but later I went back for my external drive. While I was there, we chatted for a bit and had a tearful goodbye before I got into the car to head home for the night. With my headlights on, I drove up the incline of the dirt driveway before leveling out before the road. Before I could drive down the road, however, my view was obstructed by a hooded figure, and I was sure wasn't there when I got into my car. All I could do was keep my foot on the brake while I stared into the shadow underneath this hood for a few seconds, but after I blinked it was gone. I took a deep breath as I tried to shrug it off and listened to music on the ride home. When I got back, I stayed in my car for a little longer to call Jerry. He was a horror novelist, and we connected through horror movies and serial killer documentaries, so telling him about this kind of thing wasn't unheard of. I told him I saw a hooded figure at the end of the road in front of his driveway, holding a walking stick and just staring. I was shocked, to say the least, when he responded, as if I mentioned someone we met together a while back. "Oh, he's harmless," he said casually. "Usually when I see him, it just means someone might die soon." I responded, "What do you mean?" "Your tone is seriously not helping. All it means is there might be some accident with the mailbox. It's best not to worry about it." I sighed and accepted that he had something attached to him that probably predicted some unfortunate events. I figured if I relaxed and stopped thinking about it, then it shouldn't attach to me at least. Unfortunately, that advice was not well taken, since the following week I dreamt about the same entity on 3 separate occasions. In the first dream, the Harbinger and I were standing next to each other across the road from Jerry's house. The Harbinger gestured to the road with his skeletal hand as if to tell me to cross, but I refused. It then traded the walking stick between us. Its hands brought the other hand to my lower back, almost pushing me to the road. I certainly didn't want it touching me, not even in my dream, so I marched forward. All the while I could feel this intention, like thoughts in my mind saying, "You feel me getting closer to him, don't you?" The second time he appeared in my dream, he brought his hand to my stomach, and instantly I felt pregnant. I didn't understand how or why, and I just said, "I can't have any more kids." The Harbinger nodded with acknowledgement to my words and leaned in, but I still couldn't see its face. All I could sense next were his thoughts in my mind speaking to me. "That's why I had to get rid of you." In the final dream, when I saw it, I was in my bed and it was standing on the side before it set its walking stick down and crawled under the blankets with me, like we were friends having a sleepover while it faced me. Then, while I stared back, I couldn't see any sign of a smile, and it didn't make any gesture to put its thoughts in my head. However, there was one thing I felt while it laid with me. The sense of the Harbinger's ecstatic joy witnessing my misery was palpable and staggering. The next day, I woke up, upset, and I called Jerry. I told him about the dreams I was having and how they messed with my head, and how I just couldn't get rid of the Harbinger's presence. He didn't offer much help, though it wasn't like he could. He was apologetic and said that the dreams made sense, but it was what he assumed could happen. A couple of days later, I was giving a message to a friend of mine who works with energy and auras when I talked to him about the Harbinger. He gave it some thought and told me it sounded like a voodoo curse. He mentioned that the curse passes on through the target's children, and if there's no way the target can bear children, then the curse has nowhere else to go. A couple of years later, I stayed in touch with Jerry, but we would only send memes back and forth occasionally. Then one day he messaged back really early in the morning, which was odd considering he wasn't a morning person. When I asked about it, he told me that he had been hospitalized because of a heart attack. I would visit him when I could, but he never wanted to talk into detail about his condition. The next week, while at home, I was sitting in my living room with my son between me and the kitchen. At some point, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the Harbinger walk behind my son and into the kitchen before I could look over to see it. Immediately, I suspected something happened to Jerry. He didn't normally post on social media, but his mother did. When I checked, I scrolled through until a post caught my eye, a memorial. Jerry died only 3 days after I last saw him. A voodoo curse. Whew, that one was rough. Okay. Whew. So, I don't know anything about it. What was the curse? Like, is the Harbinger literally just there to warn, or did the Harbinger cause? It feels like just a warning, right? But, like, maybe not. I don't know. I want to know, but I don't. I don't know. What's your take?
I think it was a warning.
I think it was a warning?
Yeah.
Even though she felt malicious intent? Because, remember, he put, like, his hand on her stomach, and she was like, I can't have kids. And he was like, I know. That's, you know.
I think the Harbinger was malicious, but, like, not in, like, it was wanting to cause suffering, but more it was just happy about suffering.
Alright, next story. First of all, I want to tell you that I love your videos. It's always fun to check on your YouTube and TikTok, and I adore all things spooky. Thank you for making such amazing content. Here's a story that happened to me that I figured I'd share. So tonight I was heading down to do the laundry. I live in a house from 1890, so laundry room is in the spooky basement. I'm used to ghosts in my space. We coexist well as long as they have mostly positive energy. I also love thrifting and collecting haunted dolls that I find, so major love of the supernatural. This time when I was walking down the stairs, I sensed I was being watched. I looked around energetically and sensed a very long, dark, shadowy being clinging to the underside of the stairs. It had 2 glowing white eyes. I asked it who it was, thinking it was just another ghost. Sometimes they present themselves as very terrifying before they're comfortable with you. And it said, "Who are you to speak to me, mortal?" In your own house? I have a bad habit of annoying darker entities on purpose. I probably have a death wish. It's just a little fun to poke the bear. So I chatted with it as if it were a friend. It wouldn't tell me any more about it, but that it was a shadow being, and said it would leave me alone as I didn't understand who I was speaking with. When I went back to change my clothes over, I went ahead and spoke to it again, just saying hello, and it once again said, I don't know who I'm speaking to, but then it began to follow me and watch me through the window as I went back upstairs. Do you know anything about beings that live under the stairs? Not off the top of my bat. It literally just sounds like a shadow being, but, like, also, they don't really talk that much. I mean, I think they have and they can. Under the stairs. But it sounds like just a shadow person with a superiority complex. I don't know why I was talking to you like that. Alright, next story. Recently, I went into the woods with my friend. She lives by the woods only a house away from it, and I was so happy that we got to go in there because I miss being in the woods all the time, as in my past I have memories. But this time was not a normal woods experience. I also did not have my phone because it was charging. Like the 3rd or 4th time we went in there that day, we started hearing leaves moving and trees moving, which we brushed it off because the trees are very thin and the wind could have pushed them into the leaves. But the more we listened, we noticed no leaves were moving, and it started to sound like steps, 2 at a time, meaning it's an animal. Which she has many animals by her: coyotes, deers, wolves, dogs, etc. So we started to get scared because we can't fight off animals. We're 5 foot, both of us, so we froze in our shoes. She starts hitting a stick on a rock to make it sharp, and I grabbed one too and did the same thing. We slowly and quietly start to walk back to our house, and we froze because we heard it get closer. I whispered, "I'm gonna cry." Then we heard the mimic of a coyote sound. She said, "Run," yelling quietly. We started running, and when she screamed, we quickly got out of the woods. It was still screaming. We got to the house and stopped in front of it. The screaming stopped, and she said, "I don't want to sound funny, but I think I saw a walker." We told her mom, and her mom does not believe us. I still have the stick. Hopefully it was just an animal. It was just an animal and, like, a weird experience. That's creepy, though. It's creepy regardless. Animals are still scary if you encounter them in the woods. Alright, next scary. Next scary. Next story. Jesus. If you choose to share this, I don't want my name used, as my family is super superstitious, and if they somehow put 2 and 2 together, they would flip, as I never told them this happened. I've never told anyone besides my husband about this. It may potentially be an Appalachian story, as I believe the mountains are part of that range. So this happened around a year and a half ago. I'm from the south, don't want to be too specific. Nowhere near the mountains. I do know some of the stories and know the rules. I have family that lives in lower New York and the Catskill Mountains region. My husband and I flew up for a family wedding, and we're staying with my cousin in their trailer to save on hotel costs. The trailer was at the base of the mountains back in the woods, like a squirrel could jump from the tree to the house close. I kind of had an uneasy feeling the whole time we were at that house. Something felt off. My husband was perfectly fine, as he is the least superstitious person I know, so he doesn't believe the following happened. My cousins were gone for the night as they had to travel for work and left us at the place by ourselves for the night. My husband was laying in the guest bedroom on his phone. No videos were playing, which is important. I was in the kitchen getting a drink, and it was dark out, probably around 9 p.m. I was terrified of looking out dark windows, and there was no curtains on any of these windows, so I was on edge, purposefully not looking out. My back is to the kitchen window, and from right behind me, I clearly hear in my husband's voice, "Darling, come here." He only calls me darling, so I respond, my husband's name, "What do you want?" He acts really confused and says he never said anything and to come to bed. I remembered stories I heard and said I was imagining it because he usually calls for me to bring something. After a minute, it clicked that this voice didn't have his usual loving inflections on darling, and the come here sounded like a direct order. The voice had come in the direction of the window. Luckily, to get to the bedroom, I walked to the light switch and didn't have to face any windows. I acted like nothing happened and locked the bedroom door when I got there. Luckily, the bedroom window has thick blackout curtains, but the rest of the night I could have sworn there was wrestling outside. Our flight home left early the next morning, and I was happy to leave. I never told my cousins about what happened, and they have since moved, and I may eventually tell them if we visit. I don't want to speak it out loud up there. I also want to add that my husband hates pulling pranks, and I have a severe anxiety disorder, so he wouldn't do that and lie, as he knows it would cause me incomprehensible distress. I hope you find this interesting. If requested, I can try to remember more details, but I tried to forget and not focus on it. No, you gave a perfect amount. Don't stress yourself out and figure out more. It does sound very Appalachia-esque. As long as nothing happened after you got home, I wouldn't worry about it, and I would try to just put it completely as far out of your mind as you can, because if nothing else happened, nothing followed you, don't even worry about it. Alright, next story. I'm hooked on your videos and watch them religiously anytime there's a new upload. Thank you. This story isn't mine, but my sister's. For some background, our whole family is Muslim, but I like hearing stories about what other people's paranormal experiences are, whether I believe in those things or not. We only believe in jinns and the existence of them in the other world. She lives in my now-dead grandmother's house when this story took place. She was still alive. One night, she went out to get a glass of water. There's a narrow hallway parallel to the doorway of the living room. On the left of that narrow hallway is her room. She was coming back to her room. She saw a tall, dark-horned shadow in front of this narrow hallway. She stared at it for what seemed like hours until she closed her eyes and recited a prayer. It was gone. The next night, she went to get a glass of water, and it was closer to her than the night before. She closed her eyes, prayed, and it was gone again. The next night, she tried to see if it would return, and it did. It was so close to her that she could see its every detail in its face. She said more prayers, and it never came back, cleansing or doing similar rituals or sins in Islam, but I'd like to still hear your thoughts on my sister's experience. Okay, you mentioned jinns. Is that... I know jinns are very similar to, like, mimics. Is that the same thing as a jinn? The horned creature? That's creepy. I mean, if it was like a one and done thing, I don't really think a cleansing or anything would be needed anyways. But that's really creepy. I mean, if praying got rid of it, that's just weird. What? I'm confused on the correlation. Is that how jinns present themselves? Like, is that their normal form? Now I need to know. I don't know much about jinns. I don't research much. They freak me out. All right, next story. I normally don't share these with anyone, but the activity has gotten weirder. Mind you, I live in Vancouver, Washington, in a residential area with barely any trees around. We do have a park in the neighborhood, but it's nearly a mile away and is surrounded by trees, but not exactly a forest. I have a newborn daughter, and I was up at 4 a.m. getting her bottle ready. I was walking into the kitchen, and I had one of my dogs with me. I hear my wife's voice say, "Babe," followed by a whistle. The initial thought was my wife was trying to get my dog back in the bedroom, but the voice was monotone and lacked emotion. My dog reacted to the whistle and became glued to me. I remember my wife was asleep and made no movement when I got up with the baby. I was in shock for a moment, and Power walked back into the bedroom. I knew not to acknowledge anything, nor to go searching for the source. A couple nights later, I mistakenly looked out of my back sliding glass door at 5 a.m. and saw a figure about a street away from my house. It wasn't someone walking because it was staring right into my house and not moving. It had, from what I could tell by the quick glance, wide eyes. Now, from stories I hear on this app, I know not to acknowledge those either. And just tonight as I'm writing this, I heard a whistle and a scream from what sounds like far away, but I know from other people the quieter it is, the closer they are. The same dog that was with me the night of the first whistle reacted to climbing into bed with us and staring right out of the slider in our bedroom. I'm not sure what this could be, but the screaming has happened a few times over the summer and always at 1 a.m, almost exactly on schedule. Figured I'd share my story with you, as my wife doesn't believe me. Has your wife not experienced anything? Which, that's normal. These things will specifically, like, target one person to isolate you. I hate it, but they do. I'm so sorry that's happening. Get something ironed. Put it up at your front door, like, above your door frame or something. But yeah, that's terrifying. Well, anyways, we're going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow.